as well. Let's bring in Texas Republican Rep-elect Pat Phelan joining us now. Not all Republicans fell in line here. You showed your support. Why did not all Republicans? What are you hearing and what's happening on the floor?
Well, right now we're in negotiations and really just talks, trying to understand why these folks didn't vote for Mike, because in November, we had a selection process within the Republican conference, and Mike was elected unanimously by acclamation. So we all gave our word then that we were going to go on the floor and vote for Mike. So we're trying to, actually, there's really no specifics. And listen, I empathize with the frustrations that this place can bring about. I get that part. But this is not the way to channel it. The way to channel it is to have Republican unity and making sure that every member has a voice. I mean, essentially, we all have a veto, not just on who the speaker will be, but on any major legislation moving forward. And we have to work together. We're not going to get things done for the American people.
Congressman-elect Bret Baier here. What do you think is the message of these three? Have you talked to them directly? What are they saying? And do you have hopes that they're going to be swayed somehow?
Brett, yeah, I have talked to two of the three, and I'm cautiously optimistic. And what we're talking about is process. I mean, Mike Johnson's not going to make any tit-for-tat deals. So there's not going to be any quid pro quo. But what we can talk about is how we improve the process and making sure that every quarter of the Republican conference feels like they're being heard and that they have input. But we can't have 3 or 4 members vetoing everything constantly, or 8, whatever it is, whatever the number. So we're working on that right now to maybe have some kind of a task force on major legislation and making sure that the different factions within the conference have seats at that table. And hopefully that will be enough. I know President Trump is not only fully supporting Mike, but he's talking to some of the members that have reservations. And again, this is a blanket, Brett, that's a little wrinkled. We're smoothing it out.
Rep-elect, we appreciate that. So you said you spoke to 2 of the 3. Is it fair to say that you feel cautiously optimistic that they'll come around?
I do, but I'm a very hopeful person. If you throw me out of a 60-story building at the 40th floor, I'd say so good so far. But no, I think we can get there. And but listen, if they're negotiating in good faith, I do think that we can get there. And I'm hopeful that they are. But if it's just to get attention, well, then you're going to throw this entire process into a wood chipper, because I'm voting for Mike Johnson, and I'm voting for Mike Johnson only. He is the Speaker of the House. He needs to be the next Speaker of the House. He got our promise by acclamation in November, so there's no alternative for me. And I think there are scores of members like that. So we'll be at simple impasse. So let's not get there. Let's get these members. Let's have their voices be heard. Let's get together. We're a family, a dysfunctional family. We're a family. Let's get this. Let's hug it out and let's move forward.
Yeah, and by the way, Speaker-elect Johnson
Yes.
now in a huddle, including Congressman Massey, Norman, and Self, several other conservatives in the back on the center aisle. I don't know if the C-SPAN cameras pan all over the place, but there is a huddle in the back of the room. Maybe we'll catch that. I think that we have it right there. And they're huddling now, talking. What do you think is that conversation, Congressman-elect, if you say that the Speaker-to-be is not going to make any quid pro quo deals?
I think it's really, honestly, Brett, about process. And right after we're done talking here, I'm going to be right in the middle of that huddle. And because I really do encourage that. I think we should have some kind of a task force on major legislation and making sure that Freedom Caucus members are heard, Main Street Caucus are heard, the Tuesday Club. There's 4 or 5 major factions within the conference that they're all, part of it. Because, again, if we bring any legislation to the floor that doesn't have 99.9% of Republicans, it's not going to pass anyway. So we've got to have people from cradle to grave on board.
Rep-elect, would you care to share the 2 that you're cautiously optimistic about?
No.
Okay. All right. So if you're standing in the middle of that huddle that you said you're about to return to in a moment, what's your message?
I think the message would be Mike's had an incredibly difficult job. It was divided government. I think the expectations for some of the members were, to be fair, too high. But now we're in unified government. Let's do, I think, a task force on major legislation, as I've mentioned a few times in this little discussion, and have their voices be heard. They were a little upset about the debt limit, and there was 34, I think it was 34 to 38 Republicans voted no. But you know what? That happened. That's in the past. That was the last Congress. Let's move forward and do it in a way in which all the voices are heard and respected.
Last thing, really quickly, we're looking now at Hakeem Jeffries on the floor. What do you tell people about why Democrats seem to have a better ability to herd the cats, if you will, to be able to hold everybody, even in the tightest of majorities? Is it just a different mentality of the individualism of Republican members? As we look at Tom Massey on the floor talking to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Brett, because the Democrats, by a large measure, are easier to herd than sheep. And the Republicans, as you said, we're cats, but we're not house cats. We're big, giant lions on the Serengeti. And it's hard as hell to get us all to swim, in the same direction. But look at what the Democrats did with COVID. They were wearing their masks, and they weren't going to church, and they were doing whatever the government told them. You got to question authority every once in a while. But we need to flow. We can do that questioning. We can have our discussions, and then we need to go out together, unified as a team. There's a locker room, and then there's what you do on the field. So we can have our discussions in the locker room, but on the field, we got to all be moving together.
Gotcha. Well,
Congressman-elect Fallon, we appreciate you.
We'll let you get back to that huddle. Thank you.